Hello programmers, I'm going to take a C Hello World program here that prints have a great day and turn it into a C++ program that says have a great day and does a little bit more. So all my students come into their Intro to C++ class knowing C, and in C your execution starts in main. That's the same thing with C++. In C you're including standard io.h if you want to use printf. In C++, you could do that, or you could include C standard IO, and it's got the same functions in it. It's just got a wrapper around that, those header file functions. So we run this again, and we're just going to verify that it's going to do the same thing. It's going to print have a great day. Now, if I want to do the C++ version of a print statement, then I'm going to include a different header, IO stream, for input and output stream. And to make things a little easier in this video, I'm going to do using namespace std, and I have a whole video on what does that mean, what does the namespace mean, but for now just trust me, it's going to help you easily just use cout, which is the equivalent of printf for printing to standard output, and we could say I'll do hello world as my cout statement. And instead of \n as the new line character, in C++, we can still do \n, but we could also do end L. So I'm going to go ahead and run this program, and I'll have two lines printing to the screen. One is more of the C way of printing, and the other is the C++ way of printing. And so we, let's see, take a look at that, and we have two lines printing to the screen. Okay, what about reading in input from the user? Well, the C version of reading in input from the user, first maybe I'd say enter a number, and then in C we do something like scanf, and there's even in Visual Studio scanf_s, a safer version of scanf, and we'd say, well, I want to read an integer, so I have to remember integers are %d, and I want to store it at an address of a variable, so I would need a variable that's an integer like x. And to me that is kind of a clunky way to do it, but it definitely works. And then we can print you entered, and then %d, or sorry, %d \n, and then the variable name. So this is what we're used to doing, reading in an integer from the user and printing that back to the screen, and we combine the text with the value of that variable with kind of this awkward combination of %signs and \n. But we get our two print statements. It asks us to enter a number, we enter in a number, and then it says you entered 5. So that's all well and good, but the C++ way of doing this I think is a bit more elegant. So instead of saying enter a number this way, we're going to switch that to a cout statement. And we don't need it to go to the next line, so we don't need an end L statement here. Instead of scanf, I'm going to do cin for reading in from standard input, and I'm going to get rid of all those %sign and ampersand sign notation that we had with scanf, and just put the variable where I want to store the input from the user. So the arrows are going in the direction of I want to take the input from the user and put it into a variable, or the other arrows for a cout, that insertion operator takes, I want this string and I want to send it to standard output. So keep track of those arrows, because getting those pointing the wrong way is a beginner kind of mistake that people make. What about this print statement? Well, the C++ way of doing it is cout, and then instead of doing this crazy %d, we can just put the variable that we want to print. Only I'm going to have another insertion operator, that less than sign, and then the variable, and then another insertion operator and my end L to go to the next line. So I go ahead and run this, and it takes a little bit of time to compile with Visual Studio, but as soon as it does, I've got my 2 print statements, and it asks me to enter in a number. I'll enter in a number, and it says you entered 7. So that's the C++ equivalent of that C program doing hello world and a little bit more. More videos coming soon.